I want to speak a little bit on safeguarding. If you have left your home country and you are in the UK, for instance, you need to think safeguarding. Even if you're in your country, wherever you are as an adult, we all need to think what? Safeguarding. And what is safeguarding? Safeguarding is any action we take to promote a child's welfare, any action we take to protect them from harm or abuse. That is safeguarding. And safeguarding is actually preventive. So we take steps to prevent a child from encountering harm. We are proactive about it. We think ahead. We plan and make the environment a safe place so that the children do not come to harm. That is safeguarding. And as is commonly said, safeguarding is everyone's business. Safeguarding is everybody's responsibility. So under safeguarding, there are specific activities or specific laws called child protection. So child protection is a wing or is an aspect of safeguarding. And in child protection, there is a focus to identify children who are at risk for harm. So everyone who is concerned or everyone who is working with children will be on the lookout for any child who appears like they are at risk of significant harm. Child protection will take action to protect the child, and child protection will stop further abuse from happening to the child. Now, the question that we usually ask is this: is this child at risk of significant harm? Has this child come to harm? So often, the agencies or the professionals ask this question. They sort of look for evidence for a yes in this question. And if the answer is yes, then an investigation will be carried out. So before I move on, let me just speak a bit on laws around discipline in the UK. Unfortunately, many times the Black community coming into UK, we fail to understand that the laws around discipline is a bit different from where we're coming from, like I have described. Now, in Scotland and Northern Ireland, smacking and indeed all forms of physical punishment is illegal. In England and Wales, physical punishment is also illegal. It is also against the law for a parent to use physical punishment on a child and leave a mark on that child. So, in other words, if there is a mark on a child by virtue of a punishment, that is unlawful. It is also illegal to use an implement to hit a child. For instance, using a rod, using a belt, using a wire, using a spatula, because these would leave the impression of an implement and is unlawful. Now, it is also unlawful for any adult who is not the child's parent to carry out any form of physical punishment on the child. So, any parent who caused deliberate harm on a child could face criminal prosecution. So, still speaking about the laws around discipline, in the UK, in England, smacking is illegal unless it is a reasonable punishment. And there's been a lot of debates about what is a reasonable punishment. So I would just advise to avoid this, because the reasonable punishment is individualized. You can't tell. It is judged on a case-by-case basis. It depends on the severity. It depends on the age of the child. It depends on the circumstance. It just depends on so many things. And if there is a bodily harm, or if there is a mark or a bruise or an injury, then it's no longer reasonable punishment. So if there's a bodily harm, like I said, it's really illegal. If there are other kinds of abuse in the child, then that raises a suspicion of safeguarding issues. So I've just put up this slide to give some pictures of some cases that we can see. And I know that, to be honest, these cases should not be seen in Black community in the UK, because like what I said, I love the Black parenting style and it's really unique. But sometimes there is an extreme that attracts the social care. Okay, so these pictures obviously would attract safeguarding investigation. So why will there be a safeguarding investigation? A safeguarding investigation occurs when there is a disclosure from a child. For instance, a child discloses to the school or to a responsible adult that they've been hit. So even if there's no mark, if a child discloses, then there's going to be an investigation, likely. If in the school, for instance, they find any signs of abuse in the child, and of course, you know the signs of abuse: physical abuse, emotional abuse, neglect, sexual abuse. If there are any signs of abuse in a child, then that would attract an investigation. One of the most common type of abuse is neglect. And I suppose sometimes we tend to forget that neglect is a type of abuse. For instance, if the child is left unsupervised, that's neglect. If they are inappropriately dressed for the weather, let's say when it's winter, they're not wearing a winter coat and they're shabbily dressed, that's neglect. If they've got dental caries, lots of dental caries, because they're taking a lot of sweet drinks, they're not brushing their teeth and parents don't care about it, that is also neglect. If they're not fed well and they're growing too fat, obese, or they are too thin, that's neglect. If your child is asthmatic and you're not attending, hospital appointment, not only for asthmatic children, for instance, but generally for appointments. If you're missing medical appointments, that is also neglect. And you find out that a lot of reason for safeguarding investigation fall under the category of neglect. And if there is one neglect or if there is one type of abuse, they would really look around for the other types of abuse because often they are together.